everyone. Hello, all the children watching at the school we're at today, and hello to all the children who are watching throughout the UK live streaming. Thank you very much for tuning in to us. Hello to all the teachers as well. It's not just kids, is it? There's some grown-ups watching too. Now, you might know me from CBBC. I present the bits in between the shows with Hacker and Dodge. Anyone know Hacker and Dodge? Yeah. I've not brought them with me, don't worry. Also, I present the CBBC Book Club. So if you do watch CBBC, you probably know that I love books, and I also really love baking and eating cakes, which is the best bit about baking, really, isn't it? So I'm very excited today to be sat next to the wonderful Nadiya Hussain. Let's give her a really big round of applause. Thank you. Thanks to all the schools watching if you were cheering as well. Extra points for you. Nadiya, we're here today to talk about your book, which is a storybook and a cookbook in one, which is quite unique. It's here in front of me, and it's called Bake Me a Story. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I love writing, and I've always wanted to write a kid's cookbook, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. I thought, what isn't out there? I want to do something a little bit different. And my kids absolutely love reading and love cooking, love being in the kitchen. And often whenever I'm in the kitchen and I'm sort of knee-deep in, elbow deep in frosting or cake batter or something, and they just come up like, can you just read us this story? And it was just a light bulb moment. And I stop everything just to read them this story. And I thought, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a storybook and a cookbook kind of all mixed into one.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. So if you love stories and you love baking, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it the stories or was it the recipes?
See, that was the tough bit. But then I started, right, I'm going to start with the story first, and then weirdly somehow, it was quite an organic process actually. So did the stories and then kind of weaved in certain ingredients and then created the recipes. But I think with the book, the good thing about it is that you don't have to do the story first and the recipe second. You can do the recipe first and then the story second. So, you know, it's entirely up to you how you do it. It's just quite a creative, imaginative way of reading and baking at the same time.
Yeah, it's the best of both worlds, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know some people do actually sit down and read cookbooks like they're a bit of a novel anyway. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I do that as well. So this way you actually do get the stories too, which is good. And you've got some classic fairy tales included in the book. What made you want to go with some of the traditional stories? But you have changed them, haven't you? So what inspired that?
Well, I sat back and I thought, right, I'm going to read some fairy tales, see what they... So it was toying between writing them completely myself or actually changing fairy tales. And I read them and I was like, these are grim. No wonder we read these fairy tales to our children and then they say, oh, Mummy, I'm having nightmares. Well, of course you are. Of course you are. I've just read you about a wicked stepmother and a poisonous apple. Of course you're having nightmares. I thought, right, I'm changing these. I'm making them a little bit more relevant, a little bit more modern, and a bit more fun, with the recipes included. And so it was just, fairy tales are classics and everyone recognizes them, but I wanted to do something slightly different with them. So I put my own little twist on them.
There is something really fun about reading something which you know really well, so a fairy tale like the Gingerbread Man, which you've probably heard loads of times, and then it being a little bit different. And that's a really fun thing that maybe some of the children watching or some of the children here today could do in their English classes and their writing classes, perhaps. So have you got any tips for anyone if they want to sort of mix up a traditional fairy tale?
Well, for me, I think it was a mixture of the traditional fairy tale, but it's kind of taking modern life and putting modern things. When you start to put modern things into old sort of fairy tales and old stories, it's weird how the two you can just put them together and they just work. And something about being slightly silly that I quite enjoy. I just like being a little bit silly. And that's why I wrote the book, because it's my excuse to be silly.
It feels a bit naughty, doesn't it? Because you always sort of listen to those stories when you were at school and then you get to change them a bit. There's something a bit naughty about it. We've got a picture there as well of you and your children who are here today at the school that we're at. Have they enjoyed the book?
Yeah, they were definitely a very big part they were a massive part of the process. So when I was writing the stories, I would, if there was a bit that wasn't funny, I'd read it out and they're like, I don't think that's really funny, take it out. So they were definitely very critical and very, their advice helped me to write the stories, and then the recipes. As I was testing them, little components I'd take and say, what do you think of that? And they're my chief taste testers. And if they don't like something, I'm like, all right, let's start that again. So, and then down to the pictures, the animation, and we went away and did these pictures, and then we added Claire Rossiter, who did the illustrations. We added the illustrations to the pictures, and then we just created, and it's just all come to life very slowly. So I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, your children do feature quite heavily in the book,
Yeah.
and we'll have a closer look at that a little bit later on and talk about the illustrations. But for now, it would be quite nice to hear you read one of the stories. Would you do that for us?
Yeah.
I believe you've got a little video to
I
show
have,
us.
yeah, I've got a little video, yeah. Not here now, got a video.
Let's have a little watch of this.
Hi, I'm Nadia, and this is my new book, Bake Me a Story, and I'm going to read The Not Just Ginger Gingerbread Guy. It was nearly 11's time, and a little old lady was at home with nothing to dunk in her cup of tea. She rootled through her cupboards. There were no chocolate cookies, no figgy rolls, not even any plain old crackers. But she could see lots of flour, brown sugar, honey, and jars upon jars of spices. The little old lady decided to make her favourite biscuit, a gingerbread guy. But when she went to add her ginger, she realised that there wasn't quite enough left in the jar for her recipe. So the little old lady reached for another of the spice jars instead. The label read star anise. She gave the jar a sniff. It smelled sweet and smoky and a little bit magical. So the little old lady measured out a tablespoon of star anise, added it to the mixture, and put her gingerbread guy in the oven to cook. After 15 minutes, the cottage was filled with the most delicious smells. The old lady took the gingerbread guy out of the oven and turned to put the kettle on. And when she turned back, she couldn't believe her eyes. The gingerbread guy had jumped off the baking tray and was running out of the front door. "Don't go, gingerbread guy," cried the little old lady. "I want to dunk you in my tea." She kicked off her slippers and chased her biscuit down the street. When she caught up with the gingerbread guy, the old lady grabbed his little arm, but he was still too hot from the oven. "Ow!" she cried and let him go. The gingerbread guy ran down the street. Before long, he came to a field where he ran past a cow. "Stop, little gingerbread guy," mooed the cow. "I'm fed up of eating grass. Oh, I'd love a biscuit instead." The gingerbread guy didn't stop, so the cow gave chase. When she caught up with the gingerbread guy, she gave him a big sniff. "You smell different," the cow said, confused. And while the cow was having a good long think, the gingerbread guy sneaked away. He ran on until he came to a river. "If my feet get wet, they'll fall off," the gingerbread guy said to himself. "How am I going to get across?" "Allow me to help you, young biscuit," said Fox, appearing from behind a bush. "Jump up on my tail and I will carry you across the river. You can trust me. Foxes don't eat gingerbread." The gingerbread guy didn't know that really foxes absolutely love gingerbread. So he jumped on the fox's tail and the fox plunged into the river. "My feet are getting wet," said the gingerbread guy. "You're too heavy for my tail," said the fox. "Jump up onto my back." So the gingerbread guy jumped onto the fox's furry back. And before long, the fox's back started to get wet too. "You're too heavy for my back," said the fox. "You'll have to jump onto my head." So the gingerbread guy jumped on the fox's head, but it wasn't long before the water was rising again. The gingerbread guy was so worried about his feet. If they got soggy and fell off, he wouldn't be able to carry on running when he got to the other side. "There's only one way to keep your feet dry," said Fox. "You'll have to keep jumping high in the air until we reach the riverbank." So the gingerbread guy jumped as high as he could. The sly fox tipped his head back, his jaws open wide. The gingerbread guy landed in the fox's mouth and snap! The fox's jaws closed shut. "Pah! Ah!" The fox spat out the gingerbread guy in surprise. "You taste different," he spluttered. Then the fox realised his mistake. "But different tastes so good. Come back so I can eat you properly." The not-so-gingerbread guy laughed. "That will be the star anise," he yelled over his shoulder to the fox. And on his little dry feet, he carried on running. The end.
Lovely. So that's the first story in the book, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very nice indeed. Some people are clapping. Go on, let's give Nadia a big round of applause. She deserves it. And so we've seen in action there what you were talking about. You've taken a traditional story, you've changed it, you've added mentions of presumably the ingredients that are then in the recipe, which will come afterwards. And also we saw some fantastic illustrations there, which you did touch on before. So what's lovely about the book is yourself and your children are featured quite heavily, so real photographs of you.
Yeah.
And then there are illustrations built in around that. So tell us a bit about who did those illustrations and what happened.
Well, it was kind of, we thought, right, how do I want to, I wasn't sure they wanted the kids in the book, but actually they played such a big part in actually writing the book. It felt right to have them in the book. And we did the pictures, and then Claire Rossiter did the illustrations, and then we put the two together. And so we were doing things like walking in line together, or there's a picture of me, I'm kind of just stood there like that, and then Claire Rossiter put a pumpkin in. So it was just, the way it was all built together worked really well. And it was something that the kids helped me so much to create the book, that it felt right to have them in it, and it just brings it to life.
It makes it a nice family book as well, isn't it? Because I suppose a recipe book is something that a child doesn't sort of sit down and read on their own. You'll sit down with your mums and dads, or whoever your parents or guardians are, and you will do it together, won't you? So it's quite nice to see a family photo in there. It must have been quite funny when you saw those photos back and saw what had been done to them.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in the photo shoot and you're sort of doing these weird poses, you're like, I don't know how this is going to work. But there's one of me surfing on a surfboard.
That's great.
in a lake of porridge.
Because
why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, I have to ask you, what is your favourite recipe? I know this is probably like trying to choose your favourite child, which I'm sure you don't have. What is your favourite recipe in the book?
I might have. I don't have a favourite child. Maybe. Cookie mallows, I think that they're all very different. We've got like a pea and mint risotto in there, which is great because when the kids are cooking, stirring is the big thing when you're cooking with children. They all want to stir. And when you're making a risotto, there's a lot of stirring happening. So it's a great recipe for the kids to just stir. So things like that. But for us, it had to be the cookie mallows. So it's like hazelnut chocolate chip cookie sandwiched together with sticky marshmallow.
I think the cookie mallows are probably my favourite as well. I haven't attempted to make them yet, but they're all over your pictures. They're here on the front of the book, I think, are they? And
they are.
They're on this board behind us. Oh, look, there we can see the picture you're referring to as well, the pumpkin in your...
Yeah, that was just me doing this. And then Claire Rossiter cleverly put a pumpkin in there with a wand in my hand.
It's great. I love it. And what about your kids? I mean, they're here today. We could ask them, what do you think their favourite recipe is from the book?
I don't know. I mean, I think recently they've had so many recipes. I think they're happy just to have an apple now and again. They're like, do you know what? The novelty's worn off with all the bacon cooking that happens in my house. They're just like, I'll just have an apple, thank you very much.
Really?
Mom. Yeah.
Wow. So that maybe is the way to do it then. For any teachers watching who've got children, any parents watching, just make loads of cake and then we'll just want apples. That's how it works.
Just bake cake for 6 months.
So the book has been out for a couple of weeks now and it's doing very well. And I do believe that lots of people around the country have been putting pictures on social media of their attempts. Look, there we can see the cookie mallows. Somebody there has made the cookie mallows. That is lovely, isn't it?
They're very neat. I mean, they can get really messy.
Yeah, that is wonderful.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, we've got another one there. Oh, lovely stuff. They're clearly a popular choice, aren't they? Oh, nice. And what have they made? Some
berry breakfast muffins.
Oh, the berry breakfast muffins.
The gingerbread guy.
Oh, how exciting. She looks very happy with her book and her gingerbread men there.
It's so nice to actually see that people have actually made, and you know, I spent so much time writing the book and kind of thinking about the concept and how I wanted to do it, and to actually see people have actually made them, it's really nice to actually see. Yeah, it is.
People are reading it, people are making the recipes, all that hard work.
Like, I thought it's just my dad would buy the book. I just thought just my dad. He's the only person in the world who would buy anything I'd made. So, so it's nice to see that people are actually enjoying the book. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, they definitely are. Definitely not just your dad, everybody else as well. So let's talk a little bit about Bake Off, because of course, I'm sure lots of children watching from schools around the UK and children here today have probably watched you on Bake Off. It is a family show. It's fun to watch. And literally everybody loves you from that. I mean, I was telling people what I was doing this week and all my friends were like, tell Nadiya I love her. You were so popular on it. Tell us a little bit about it. What made you decide to enter in the first place?
I didn't want to enter, I have to be honest. I'm being completely honest, I didn't want to enter. And it was my husband. I'd been at home with the children for 9 years. And my husband just said, look, I just think that you need to do something for you now. You know, you work so hard to look after us. And this is something that he knew I wanted to do it, but I never said it out loud, never had the confidence to say it out loud. And then he just said, look, I think you want to do this, but you're not saying. And so he filled out the application form. And he said, look, I've done all the boring bits, you do the rest of it, and I think just send it off. And I did it just to humour him. Oh. And you know, that was it. I just said, look, I'll do it as long as you don't pester me about it anymore.
Yeah.
And then I sent it off, and you know, months later, auditions later, and then it was like, you made it to the final 12. It was that point I was like, oh, okay, time to film a TV show.
That is absolutely amazing.
Very scary.
And how did it feel when you won?
Well, it was, you know, I kept calling it week 10, and my husband kept saying, you realise it's the final. If you keep
Yeah.
calling it, there is no week 11.
Week 10 sounds less scary, doesn't it, than the final?
But I remember being stood there, and they announced my name, and all I could think about was that I had icing sugar on my shoes, and I needed to get them in the washing machine.
Brilliant.
I can't even remember what happened. And then Paul handed me the trophy, and I said, "Are you sure you don't want to give it to Tamal or Ian?" Yeah,
that's so
how.
sweet.
Yeah, I just didn't understand why he'd given it to me. And it's like, you've won this. And I just said, are you sure you don't want to give it to Tamal or Ian? And he was like, no, you won it. So it was, for me, it took a while for it to sink in.
Yeah. I think it's that attitude that, amongst other things, that captured the nation's heart, though. So, it's quite nice that you weren't just, give it to me, I've won this.
Yeah, but I mean, now it's mine.
Now it's yours. Now she's completely changed. She's a right diva now.
Yeah, he can't have it back now.
Which leads me on to my next question, actually. You've been everywhere since Bake Off. Everybody loves you. I've seen you on various TV shows. Saw you on Would I Lie to You the other night, actually.
Yes.
You were very good on that.
Thank you.
Also, on lots of radio stations and various different things. So your life must have completely changed. You said you were at home with the children for 9 years, and now, presumably, finding time at home is the difficult thing. How has life changed since Bake Off, and what has been the best thing you've done since then?
Well, it's changed, obviously, significantly. I'm not at home with the kids every single day, but... I baked the cake for the Queen.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, her 90th birthday cake, which was, when I got that phone call, I said, why me? Like, why would she want me to bake her a cake? And my husband just said, why not you?
Yeah.
Just, do it. I did toy with the idea of saying no to her, but I think that might be treason.
That's true, actually, yeah. I don't
think
think queens can behead people anymore, but still,
might get locked up in the tower and asked to clean the floors with a toothbrush or something. I don't know.
Definitely, don't go against the Queen.
No, so but I think I've been busy, but the thing is, I get to do something that I love, and very, very rarely do people in life get the opportunity to say, actually, I think I was meant to do this, and I get to say that. I get to say, you know what, maybe this is what I was meant to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm very lucky. I've been busy. I don't sleep anymore, but I'm having fun.
Who needs sleep? You can just eat cake for energy, can't you? Fine. Just lots of sugar will do it. And I am very excited about the fact that very soon you're going to be on CBBC because you're a judge on Junior Bake Off. So has anybody watching or anyone here watched Junior Bake Off on CBBC?
Oh,
it's
fantastic.
A very, very, very good show. So you are going to be a judge on that. So tell us, what was filming that show like?
That was amazing. I mean, it's really difficult when somebody says, would you like to be a judge? And I think actually it's the same tent. So I've only ever been in that tent being judged. And when I walked in on the first day, the first thing I did was walk behind a worktop. And I was like, whoa, hold on. I'm not here for this.
There was a 9-year-old going, get out of here. That's where I'm going.
So it's really hard making that transition between contestant and judge. And their children, you can't be mean to kids. No. And it's just like, it was really tough, but it's safe to say, having filmed it, we have got a super breed, a hybrid generation of bakers coming through. Seriously, I was so shocked at how talented these children are. I mean, they put me to shame. I learned things while I was in that tent.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I
haven't seen this new series, but on previous series I've watched Junior Bake Off, and the standard is absolutely amazing. I mean, does anyone here like baking? Is anyone here going to be, oh, well, there you go. There you go, everybody loves baking. We've come to the right school, clearly, haven't we, to talk about this book. And I'm sure lots of you watching around the country love baking as well. I know that my nephew absolutely does. He's always in the kitchen. I'm going to give him my copy of your book so we can use some of your recipes. And yeah, I think that's going to be very exciting watching you on Junior Bake Off.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And working with Sam and Mark
I was just going to say, I love them so much. They're brilliant.
It's a dream working with them because they are like enormous children.
Yeah,
it's just great working with them. They're such fun.
Oh, lovely stuff. Well, very soon we're going to be asking Nadiya some questions from you guys here today at school and from lots of you around the country who have sent your questions in as well. But first, I've got a bit of a quick fire round for you, Nadiya.
Go on.
So these are just quick fire questions.
Okay.
Say the first answer comes to your head. Are you ready?
Go on.
Okay. Roald Dahl or David Williams?
Oh, Roald Dahl.
Ant and Dec or Sam and Mark?
Sam and Mark.
Obviously. X Factor or Strictly?
Strictly.
Writing by hand or typing on a computer?
Always hand.
Chocolate or cheese?
Cheese.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm surprised at that. Reading at the kitchen table or reading snuggled on the bed?
Always kitchen table for us.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm surprised at that too. The Gruffalo or the Tiger Came to Tea?
Ooh, Gruffalo. Yeah.
Read a book or watch a film?
Read a book.
Eat a cake or eat a curry?
Neither. Oh, I don't know.
Neither?
I don't know. I think cake. Yeah,
Cake, okay.
Yeah.
Mary Berry or Paul Hollywood?
Oh, I knew somebody would ask that question. Neither of them. They're both mean. They're both
Lesson time or playtime?
Playtime.
I was going to say, just be wary that, lots of children at schools are watching right now and they want you to say playtime.
Yeah, playtime.
Very good. I was surprised. Cheese over chocolate with you being such a keen baker.
Well, you can make an apple pie with cheese in it.
What?
Yeah.
I've got a really, really bad cheesecake obsession at the moment.
Have you?
It's quite bad, so I'll have to get some tips about how to make a good cheesecake very soon from you. But first, let's do some of your questions, shall we? So we're going to start with a question from our audience here today. This one is from Luca, who is in year 4. Can Luca stand up, please? And we will get a microphone to you. There we go. Thank you, Luca. What's your question?
When you were young, did you always dream of being in a baker as your job?
Thank you, Luca. That's a good question. No, actually. I only started baking 10 years ago, so I didn't even know I liked baking till 10 years ago. I always wanted to be, I love dinosaurs, and I wanted to be an archaeologist, and I would dig up my mum's garden to try and get to the center of the earth. Yeah.
Was she happy about that?
She was never happy about it.
I can't imagine.
She would leave me in the garden and say, take all your clothes off while you're out there, and I would walk in my underwear because I was just dirty and muddy and messy every day.
Oh, that's great. That's proper playtime, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have got a question now from Downside Primary School, and this is from Dean. And Dean says, how do you cope with being famous in such a short time?
It's really, I think it's really odd because when I go out and people recognize me, sometimes I forget. So I'm like, why are you saying hello to me? Oh, okay. Then I realize why they're saying hello. But I think it's the balance between being at home and being outside. I try and keep that balance, and being at home with my kids and my family and my nephews and nieces and stuff makes me kind of like enjoy the other side of it. Because if I was doing the other side too much, and if I didn't have a balance, I don't think I'd enjoy it as much. But having that balance really helps.
Lovely. Thank you very much to Dean from Downside Primary School. We've got another one from the audience here now, and this is your son, Musa. Musa, in year 5, are you there?
What's for dinner tonight?
We all want to know, are we all invited around tonight for dinner, Nadiya?
Well, I'm busy working, so you can make dinner tonight.
Oh, dear Musa. All right, well, so Musa, I need to ask you then, what's for dinner tonight? What are you going to cook?
Curry, always.
Curry always. Good stuff. Well, I'll come round for dinner with you tonight then, Musa. We've got a question here from Bankside Primary School, and this is from Heba, who says, what tips would you give to children to encourage us to bake?
I think kitchens can be quite a scary place sometimes because there are things in there that are sharp and ovens that are hot. And I think sometimes just getting, because I've got 3 kids and they don't all love baking and cooking, and some need encouraging to come in the kitchen. Some of them need a little bit of encouragement. So I think sometimes just being in the kitchen and starting off with things like just doing, just playing with water and just being in the kitchen, washing the dishes, things like that. I think just being in the kitchen is helpful because then you become confident and become comfortable. Because sometimes I think kids think that the kitchen is just for grown-ups. It's not. And I think sometimes making a mess. I know parents hate it. I think that's what parents really hate, is that children make a mess in the kitchen. But sometimes they've got to make a mess. But I just tell mine, if you're making the mess, you've got to clear it up as well.
Yeah. So there you go. Go and help your parents with the pots. That's Nadiya's tip.
Be in the kitchen. Yeah.
We've got a question here from Angelica, who's in year 3. What's your question, Angelica?
How many days did it take to write the book?
How many days did it take to write the book? Well, I had a long time. I had a few weeks to write the book, but I was so excited about writing the book, I wrote it in about 3 days. I was just like tapping away, and I finished it all off, and I was like, I know this is going to I'm going to have to make this really clean and fine and perfect, but in 3 days I'd kind of tapped away and written all 15 stories. I was so excited about it. But yeah, but the thing is, I think it's when you write, when you get an idea in your head, you want to get it down really, really quickly. So if you guys had an idea that you need to write, or sometimes do you ever get a situation where a teacher gives you a piece of homework and you're like, oh, I want to do that piece of homework, and you get home and that's the first thing you do. Well, that's kind of what I did. I was like, I've got to write this right now while it's all up there.
That's impressive. We've got another question from Heba from Bankside Primary School, who wants to know, what was the most terrifying thing on the show and how did you cope on Bake Off, presumably?
For me, I think one of the most terrifying things had to be the technicals. And if anyone watched the Bake Off, they'd know that I was very bad at the technicals. And every time I picked up, I tried really hard to look under the cloth like this. I was like, see if I can see under there. And I could never see what's under there. They used to hide it very well. But it was those technicals. And Paul made us do this Cypriot pastry with cheese, and it was smelly, and it smelled like my brother's socks. It was very nice. But yeah, it was just some of the recipes. I don't know where they get these recipes from, but they're so exotic, and you don't know half the ingredients. But that was, for me, the technicals were the toughest.
The technicals do look very scary. We've got a question from Mason, who's here with us in year 3. Go ahead, Mason.
Do you get messy when you bake?
Do you get messy? You've sort of already touched on that in a way. We know you get messy when you dig up soil in the garden.
Yeah.
What about when you bake?
So I used to be a really, really tidy baker, and then when you do Bake Off, when you're in the tent, somebody does all your washing for you. So I got used to making a mess without doing any of the washing. So I'd come home and I'd do all the baking. I'd start using the floor. I'd put things on the floor. I'd put bowls on the floor. I'd just leave a mess it would go everywhere. And then I'd go leave the mess, make a cup of tea and sit and watch TV, and then I'd get my husband to do all of it.
That sounds like quite a good deal.
Yeah, well then he gets cake.
I think a messy cook is a good cook because you're focusing on the cake looking good and tasting good, aren't you?
Yeah, and it helps to have somebody to do the dishes.
It does, definitely.
Yeah.
It's a good deal. He gets to eat the cake, like you said. We've got a question here from Bardsey Primary School, and this is from Alex. And Alex says, how did you fit the Queen's birthday cake in your oven? Did you have to put it in one of the Queen's ovens in her kitchen at Buckingham Palace? I love that question.
Hi to Alex from Bardsey. No, well, I had to bake it in my house, right here.
Wow.
I had to make 9 cakes, and I did it in my oven. So no, I didn't have a special kitchen or any special, it was just in my house, and I had 4 days to get it done. I'd come back from Bangladesh filming Chronicles of Nadiya, and then I had about 5 days between then and delivering it to the Queen, which was the scariest thing
I was
I've
going
ever
to
done.
say, how did you then transport it to the Queen? Because I mean, it's quite, it looks like it could fall over.
No, I didn't. I had somebody take it over for me because I refused to do it myself.
Yes.
Because the whole journey I would just be shouting at somebody. So I just got somebody to deliver it for me, and then I turned up, put it together, and it was so scary. I think with anyone who bakes, anyone who when you're traveling with a cake, it's really scary because you just think it's going to all fall apart.
I was just going to say, I like to bake a lot and take cakes down to my mum's house, and I've lost a lot of cakes. On transit. It's not
exactly.
It's not very nice. There's icing just all over my car. Sometimes people get in, they're like, why is there pink stuff all over the floor? It's icing, don't worry about it. We've got a question here from Canyon Solar, who is in year 4.
How old were you when you started baking, and who taught you?
Good question. How old were you when you started cooking? Who taught you?
Well, I didn't. My mum had an oven. She never baked. She used to use her oven for storage. So she would put her frying pans in the oven, and I used to think that the oven was a cupboard. So I didn't even know that you can turn it on. And it was only when I was 11 or 12 when I went to high school and we had food studies class, and my teacher put butter and sugar and eggs and flour, as you do, mixed it all up, put it in a tin, got it in the oven, and I thought, what's wrong with her? Why is she putting her cake, why is she putting that in the cupboard for? And then out pops a cake 20 minutes later. And for me, as a child, that was magic.
It is magic.
I thought she is a sorceress. How did she do that? And that was it. I think that magic stayed with me forever, and I couldn't believe that you could mix that. Because when I grew up with parents who cooked, and so for me, everything was on the stove top, so you watch it happen. Whereas with cakes, you do all the mixing and then you put it away, you tuck it away, and then it comes out completely different. So for me, that magic's kind of always lived with me. I can't believe sometimes that that's what happens to a cake. So I started baking after I bought my own house, and my mum couldn't tell me off for using too many eggs.
I agree, actually. That is the amazing thing about baking, isn't it? It comes out looking completely different, as you say. It goes in sort of like as a flat liquid and then comes out as this amazing cake, and it tastes great. Usually, anyway, depending on who's made it. We've got a question here from Bardsey Primary School, and this is actually from a teacher, I assume, because it's from Miss Williams. And Miss Williams wants to know, which one of the storybook characters in your new book do you think would be most likely to win the Great British Bake Off, and why?
That's a good question.
That's a good question,
Good question, Mrs. Williams. Probably the Gingerbread Guy, because he's quick, isn't he? He's stealthy, he's fast, and he's sly. I think you need a game plan if you're going on Bake Off. I didn't have a game plan.
I was just going to say, wait, you're not sly, are you?
No. I was winging it the whole time. I just got lucky. Well,
I mean, the Gingerbread Man gets pretty lucky as well, doesn't he? So he has luck on his side.
Luck on his side too. And stealth.
Yes, he's stealthy, stealth-like. We've got a question here from Ashlyn. Is Ashlyn around? She is in year 5. What's your question, Ashlyn?
What's your family's favourite meal?
What's my
family's favourite meal?
My family's favourite meal. I cook so many different types of things. I can't pinpoint what their favourite thing is. Sometimes it's simple things like when I've cooked so many fancy things, all they want is spaghetti hoops on toast, and that's okay. But I think they really, really like my grandma's cod and clementine curry. So, yeah, it's one of my favourites. It's my mum's favourite, and it's my grandma's recipe, and that's the one that we've passed down. And I think by far that's one of their favourite recipes.
Well, they're here today, aren't they? Nadia's children, do we like the cod and clementine curry? Give us a big yes if you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come
Good. And we have got a question here from Bardsey Primary School. I'm not sure who this is. It's somebody in year 3, and they say, I know how much you enjoy writing and baking, but if you had to choose between the two, which would you choose?
Oh, that's a tough question. Good questions.
No,
they're
interrogating you.
I love doing both. I've been writing for a lot longer than I have been baking. I won a poetry competition at 7, and I've been writing ever since. So I've got this back catalogue of poems and stories that I've written for years and years and years. But I love that I can do the two together now. You know, the fact that I can cook and bake and write at the same time, because, you know, when you're writing a cookbook, there's a lot of writing involved. When you, whatever aspect of it is, there's so much writing involved. And I think the fact that I can do the two together, I don't know if I could pick.
We won't make you.
No, thank you.
We won't make you choose. You can do both. We enjoy you doing both. And we've got a question from Kira here in year 5.
What's your favourite thing to cook?
What's your favourite thing to cook?
What's my favourite thing to cook? I quite like simple things, but I love seafood. I love squid. I love making squid. I love preparing squid. I love the reaction on people's faces when I'm cleaning squid. I love the feel of squid, and I like cooking seafood, lots of seafood. Yeah.
That sounds fun. I mean, some people are probably watching thinking, that sounds gross. I don't want to feel squid.
But it's good fun. Yeah. I think it's good fun. I think for me, I always kind of pick things up, and I think, oh, you know, especially if I haven't cooked with it or baked with it before, I love smelling it and touching it, and I think, because cooking is so much more than cooking. You know, I've been doing it for years, and my dad's a very experimental cook, and I think I've learned from him that, you know, you need to touch and feel and look, and I think that's really important, especially when you've got kids, for them to be able to be comfortable. They need to be able to touch and smell and be confident.
I think actually it can make you like food that you previously didn't like as well, because I used to be quite picky. I still am a little bit of a picky eater when I was younger, and then when I did cooking class at secondary school, and you actually start to, like you say, smell and touch and taste those foods and make them yourself, and then you've got to test them.
Yeah.
It makes you quite like foods that you otherwise wouldn't have tried, because you'd have thought, oh, squid, that's a bit weird.
Yeah.
But if you've made it yourself, you start to like it, don't you?
Yeah.
We've got a question here from Maidenhall Primary School, which I believe is your old primary school.
That was my old primary
That's
school.
exciting.
Yeah.
And this is from somebody in year 6, and they say, who was your favourite author when you were at Maidenhall?
Ooh, who's my favourite author? I used to love, I can't remember what the author's name is now, but I used to love reading sort of close to year 6. Roald Dahl has always been one of my favourites. I still read it to the kids, and it's one of our favourites at home. But I used to love reading The Secret Life of Nancy Drew. I don't know if anybody remembers that. She was this teenage detective, and I was like, oh, I want to be like her. And I just remember reading those books thinking, God, I want to be like Nancy Drew.
Yeah, those are good books.
I
Nancy
did call
Drew is
myself
cool.
Nancy for a while.
Did you?
Yeah, it's a bit sad.
It's not that different, Nancy, Nadia, you know. We've got a question from the audience here, which is Huda in year 5.
Is anyone else in your family a chef?
Is anyone else in your family a chef? You've
That's
alluded
a
to your
very good
dad being
question,
a very
Huda.
good cook.
Yeah, my dad used to own lots of restaurants, so he was a chef and he used to run restaurants. So apart from that, no, just my dad. But you know, I grew up in a family where cooking is eating is very important, and I think my dad would turn up with a whole sheep and say, "Who wants to learn how to butcher a sheep today?"
Wow.
And that's what we would do for the weekend.
Wow.
Yeah. And we have enormous amount of it. We had an enormous amount of extended family. And so my dad would say, well, if you're eating alone, you are doing it wrong. So, yeah, so he was all about eating and experimenting. And, you know, I think I definitely learned the love of food from my dad. You know, for him, it's not just eating. It's about love and it's about sharing and it's about learning.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's no wonder that you've become such a good chef. We've got a question here from Bardsey Primary School, and this is somebody in year 4 who says, how did it feel being on television when all your family were watching?
That was when you're doing something like the Bake Off, because there's nobody there and there's cameras around, and you become quite naive to the fact that you're going to be on TV. And then it was when it was week 1, I remember, and my mum was adamant that we're all going to sit together and we're going to have dinner and we're going to watch it together. I was deep down, I was like, I don't want to watch it with anybody. I really don't. I don't know how I'm going to come. It was the first time I'd ever seen myself on television, so I didn't know how I was going to come across. So I said, yeah, that'll be fine. We'll watch it together. And then I said, right, I'm off. And then I left them all to it, watched it, and I said, I can't watch it with you guys. So it took a while before I could start watching it with them. But it is really hard to watch yourself back. It's really odd. And your voice always sounds different.
Yeah, I don't enjoy it. It's a strange thing. Nobody should have to watch themselves on TV.
It's like torture.
It is, yeah. It's a very odd sensation, isn't it? And Dylan from the audience here has got a question.
What's your favourite dish twist?
What's your favourite dish twist?
My favourite dish twist? Oh, I wish I thought about that now. My favourite dish twist. I quite like messing around with fruit and herbs. Now, herbs, usually people think that herbs go in savoury dishes, but I like putting herbs with fruit. So mango and parsley, or banana and basil, the two work really well together. So yeah. And apple and tarragon. So, you know, herbs and fruit work really, really well together, and I love kind of messing around with fruit and herbs.
Oh, very nice. Bankside Primary School in Leeds have sent a question. This is Yusuf, and Yusuf says, who was your favourite judge on the show and why?
Who was my favourite judge? I think I said earlier, they both mean I don't like either of them.
You can say that now.
Yeah. Do you know what? They're both very different judges. So you've got Mary, who is the queen of cake, and she, you know, when you're doing cakes, you don't want to get anything wrong, and you know that she only has to look at the cake to know whether you've done something horribly wrong with it. And Paul, you know, when it's bread week, who cares about Mary on bread week? You know, it's just about Paul that week, because, you know, he can be 50 yards away and he'll look at that bread and say, he'll know exactly what you've done wrong. So that's what's really scary, is because they know they're so good at what they do. And I think that's why people enter something like, you know, these competitions, because we value the judges' comments and their criticism, because we're learning as they criticize, as hurtful as it is. You learn.
It's always really intimidating when they walk around while you're still cooking. And you have Mel and Sue there as well, usually one of them at least, who kind of balances out the meanness. But there must be something really scary about while you're in that process. You know how stressful it is when you're trying to do anything, you know.
Yeah.
You're trying to finish your homework, you're trying to bake, whatever it is you're doing, and somebody's watching you. You're like, no, don't watch me. And for them to come round, the harsh critics, and sort of watch you do that and ask you what your process is.
So at the beginning, I was quite nervous of them. And then sort of near the end, Paul would come up and say, are you all right? Yeah, I'm all right. Are you all right? So yeah, I started to get cheeky by the end.
Yeah, we liked it when you were getting cheeky with him. We feel like he deserves it. So do you think on Junior Bake Off, are you a sweeter judge than Mary and Paul when you're judging
Obviously,
the kids?
I'm much nicer than both of them.
Of course,
obviously.
Of course. I wouldn't expect anything less.
No, I think you learn, and for me, I've got children and they bake, and sometimes I'm very honest. To be honest, I think I'm always very honest with them, because they want to learn and they value what I say to them. So if I'm honest, it's not in a harsh way or a critical way. And I was presented with these talented children who presented these absolutely phenomenal bakes, and sometimes they did, they did things that were wrong, and they valued the criticism or they valued the comments that I made, which was lovely to see. So it was nice to be able to go in and for them to learn and for me to teach.
Oh, I can't wait to watch it. We've got a question from the audience here from Adua in year 2.
Did your family help you write the story?
Did my family help me write the story? Yeah, they did. So I would write the stories, and I would, if there was a bit that I thought wasn't going to be very funny, I would read it to them. And if it wasn't funny, they'd say, "Mum, that's not funny. Take it out." So yeah, they were very good at criticising me. They're very good at that.
We've got another question here from Miss Williams from Bardsey Primary School. She's been in touch again, and she says, we have got some super new cookers at Bardsey School, and we have lots of plans to develop cooking in the coming months, which is great. What recipe would you recommend we cook in our new ovens?
Ooh, you want to do quick, easy. I think, especially when you're cooking with children in a school, even at home, I think start small. I like to do bakes that are all in one bowl, which means they're not messing around with everything all in one bowl. Less pots to wash. Less pots to wash. But I think it's that adding different textures all to one bowl without complicating it too much and then mixing it all together. So definitely I would do the cookie mallows. They are really good. And if you're, and the bean patties, again, getting them involved with their hands, shaping the bean patties.
So there we go, we've got the cookie mallows and the bean patties. Get involved. We've got a question from Patsy in the audience here, who's in year 5.
What's your favourite cake topping?
Oh, what's my favourite cake
topping?
Ooh. Well, I like to put marshmallow on everything, which is good fun. I'll put marshmallow on anything. But I have to say, and the grown-ups might agree with me, salted caramel.
Oh, salted caramel
anything.
Is good.
Yeah, salted caramel.
It's become really popular recently as well.
It has become very popular, yeah. But I do like a bit of salted caramel. On ice cream, on cake, on toast, on your cereal. Anyway, it goes, yeah.
That's great. See, this is how I wish that you were my mum and you just let me eat like this all the time. Beatrice has been in touch from Bardsey Primary School and says, what ingredients did you put in the Queen's cake?
Ooh, so I wanted to do, I wasn't sure, when somebody says, would you like to do the Queen's cake, you think, well, what flavour does the Queen eat? Like, what am I going to do her, a Vicky sponge?
Were you given a sort of specification, or were you just allowed to do whatever you wanted?
I wasn't allowed to do fruit cake because she had a situation where she'd cut into a fruit cake and she couldn't cut it in because it was so solid. So we wanted something that, I wanted to do a cake where she could get the knife through. That was really important. So I thought, you know what, I did a lemon drizzle for Mary in the final. And so I did an orange drizzle for her birthday. So I thought, let's do her an orange drizzle. So it was orange drizzle with a orange buttercream and orange marmalade. So it's very citrusy. When she cut into it, I could smell it. I was like, get in.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Exactly what we wanted.
That's good. We've got another question from Maidenhall Primary School, your old school. They say, who was your inspiration when you were at primary school?
I think when you're that young, you think, who was your favourite teacher? For me, you always remember a teacher. When you're sort of this age, there's one teacher that you always remember. And I think for me, I had a teacher called Mrs. Norton, and she was a great teacher, but I only remember for one thing. It was her birthday, and we had our lesson out on the grass. So for her birthday, she treated us. So she took us out into the field, and we had our English lesson in the field, sat down having ice lollies. Like the best teacher in the world, right? Oh,
is she still there?
I don't know.
Well, hello, Mrs. Norton, if you are. You are a great teacher. We've got one last question here, and this is also from Maidenhall, your old school, and they want to know, what was the funniest thing that happened to you at Maidenhall? That's from somebody in year 6. So what's the funniest thing that happened to you when you were at that school?
Well, there was a tree at the front of the school, and I tried to climb the tree, and all my friends said, come on, let's climb. Don't do this, kids. I tried to climb this tree, and I was the only one who managed to get up the tree, and then I got stuck.
Uh-oh.
And then I got stuck, and then I shouldn't have been up that tree anyway, and so then they had to call for help, and I was really nervous because I shouldn't have been up that tree in the first place, and then I got caught out.
Well, there you go. If you are at Maidenhall School, then you need to make sure if that tree is still there, you don't climb up it because it doesn't end well. Didn't end well for Nadiya.
No.
Well, thank you so much, Nadiya. It's been really, really lovely talking to you and hearing you answer all the questions. Great questions from everybody sat here and great questions to everybody watching at other schools as well. If you want to watch this again, you can do. Maybe you want to recommend it to your friends or your siblings. You can get to www.children'sauthors.live.co.uk and you can watch this again, which will be nice. Maybe I'll go home and watch it after this. And also, Bake Me a Story by Nadiya is out now, so you can get hold of a copy if you like and bake some of those recipes. Definitely bake the cookie mallows and send me some because I would like to eat them. Well, let's give a very big thank you to Nadiya Hussain.
Thank you.